Hey, this is Paul with BuyTruckWheels.com. Got some RV wheels we want to show you here today. Just kind of get a lot of questions on these bigger coach and bus, big RV setups. So we just kind of want to talk about some of these wheels here today for you. We're going to start off here with a 22.5 by 10.5. So this is kind of a pretty rare wheel. It's mainly only used on RVs. Michelin is the big tire that is used on this. It's a 365/70 R22.5, so it's kind of a specialty tire that's designed for higher speeds for that RV industry and a little more load carrying capacity and a little more flotation. So whenever you hear someone say wide base wheels or float wheels or super singles, all that kind of gets thrown into one pot of kind of talk, but really what it means is anything just wider than a normal wheel, which is normally 8 1/4 inches wide. So your normal dual wheel on a Class 8 truck or RV chassis is a 8 1/4 wide standard dual wheel where the front wheel, spin it around, put it on the back. These are all going to be wider than that. So we can kind of consider these float wheels to get a little wider tire. So again, this is a 22.5 by 10.5. As you can see, the face is pretty much flush with this rim edge. It actually sticks out just a hair, but it's going to be a steer only wheel. So most of the wheel and tires underneath the truck, you wouldn't really use it spun around the other way. And this is going to be mostly on the front steer axle of a lot of your big, maybe a Prevost, Monaco, Newell possibly, maybe. Tiffin, a lot of your bigger bus type RV chassis. So as you kind of keep moving back, you could go to your drive and your tag axles. So whenever people call in with these big buses and coaches, unfortunately nothing is standard. We always have to ask about each wheel on the chassis. Each tire, because they are generally, they're built for specific uses, and therefore the wheels and tires are specific. So as we kind of move back in our drive axle, this is a 22.5 by 9, so it looks pretty much just like a regular 8 1/4 dual wheel. It's just kind of beefed up to 9 inches wide. So why would you use this? Well, if you want to use a 315/80 R22.5 tire, which is usually rated at a higher weight, and the wheel is rated at a higher weight. So if that coach is big enough and needs the extra load carrying capacity, then that's when you would bump up to these 9-inch wheels. Could a coach in theory have a 365 on the front and a regular, maybe a 275 on the back? Yeah, definitely. But for this video, we're kind of just talking about the really big coaches with the heavy load capacity. So as you can see, nice black satin finish, and all these wheels are available in high polished as well. We just are kind of showing the black here in this particular video. They're machined around the bolt holes, that way when you put your lug nut with a washer, it's not going to chip up the paint as you torque and untorque several times over the lifetime of the wheel. And we've got center caps if you want to do a center cap, if you just want to do a nut cover, different options here in terms of dressing this up once they get on the coach. Kind of then moving back to if you have a third, some people call it a pusher axle, if it's a bigger chassis. This is essentially the same wheel, 22.5 by 9, it's just spun around the other way. So again, your bolt holes are going to have the machining around there to keep from cracking, but you've got your 22.5 by 9. Again, this looks like a normal 8.25 wheel, but just beefed up to 9 inches. Again, we always are going to ask your tire size, and then even with a tire size, we want to ask possibly a part number that you have on there, because we want to make sure your load rating and everything is matching up. Can you put a 315/80 R22.5 on an 8 1/4 wheel? Yeah, you can mount it on there, but generally the reason that the coach builder has put that tire on there is because it needs the capacity, and you're looking at about 10,000 pounds of capacity per wheel on this, and only about 7,400 on your 8 1/4. So just because a tire can mount on something and that wheel may be a little cheaper, doesn't mean it's necessarily the right wheel for you. So we just want to make sure, especially, you got a lot of, precious cargo in those RVs, make sure you have the right equipment moving them down the road. So again, sometimes you might have 9-inch on your drives, your pusher axle could be, an 8 1/4 wide. The other thing that we're not showing in this video here today is these are all your standard 10 on 285 millimeter bolt pattern wheels. That's pretty standard here in North America. You could have a situation where you have a 335 millimeter wheel, which is more of a European pattern, but sometimes those do go on big buses. So the bolt holes would be 335 millimeters. And we've seen them where they'll have this pattern on the front, maybe the bigger pattern on your tags or your drives. So whenever, again, we've worked with all these different chassis, and like I said, the one thing that's standard on these big buses is that nothing's standard. So, but that's okay. Don't be afraid. We'll walk through it with you. Make sure you get all the right stuff and get you moving down the road. So again,
well, I've actually also seen a 365 on the tag or pusher as well. So.
Okay, yeah, and sometimes people will ask us, we get this so often with these big coaches, and I'll tell you the reason why you can't do it. So this standard round hole might be kind of the classic boring style, but the reason you've got to run this is you can't cut much more out of this wheel and keep that load capacity. So how I mentioned earlier, this wheel has I think it's 9,990, something very close to 10,000. But if you start cutting different designs, and the forged aluminum definitely doesn't like sharp angles, those are stress points, fail points. To have a float wheel, a super singer, a wide base, it's generally always going to have to be a round hole, and it's going to be a smaller round hole. So guys will call in and want, some of the more decorative wheels that are 22.5 by 8 1/4, but unfortunately not all chassis, you won't have enough capacity using those wheels. So we always recommend starting with what you need and then picking out what's available rather than picking out what you may like, may have a little more style, more options, but it may not fit your chassis. So a lot of guys get disappointed because they may not like the round holes, but really in the wide base wheels, you've got to pretty much stick with these round holes, and they're generally going to be smaller because the wheel has to carry so much weight. So that's something we run into quite a bit. Guys want some of the more decorative stuff, but just not quite available in these wide base or float options. So again, any questions? We know not everybody out there driving a big bus is a wheel expert, tire expert. That's okay. Give us a call. We'll answer any questions you've got and hopefully get you the right product.